Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have swatches for you. It's been a long time coming from Iscream Nails. So I do have 16 of their new releases, 8 of which are from their ice cream release, and then 8 of which are just newer releases. So I do have 16 polishes to look at today. In the description box below, I will link the ice cream site, I will link their Instagram page, and I will link my Instagram page where you can see more swatches of everything from today's video. I will also link a page to their stockists. They are an Australian company. They do ship pretty much worldwide, just in case you'd rather order from a stockist though, or if you wanted to order from other brands, I will leave that in the description box below as well. So like I said, 16 polishes to look at, and let's go ahead and get started. So first we have Rainbow Frosting, and this is a milky white acrylic base, and it does have orange, blue, purple, and pink metallic hex glitters, as well as holographic larger hex glitters, and then these blue holographic bark glitters. So here's our first coat of Rainbow Frosting. So this one is pretty sheer here on this first coat. The base to it is a little bit milky. You do get a good amount of glitter if you do a little bit of swirling for it. I did go ahead and do that because I saw how much I got on my pinky nail, so I did a little bit of swirling. I didn't have to hold the bottle upside down or anything like that. These glitters, especially the bar glitters, do take some manipulation to get them to lie where you want them to and to spread out evenly across the nail. Not difficult, just a little time consuming. So here's our second coat, and that's building up well in 2 coats, but I can still make out my nail line, so I am going to go in for a third coat. The formula on this one is a little bit on the thinner side. If you do too thick of a coat, you could get some running and pulling with this one into your sidewalls, but 3 thin coats does build this one up to opacity just fine. This is going to dry decently glossy on its own, though with all the glitter that's in here, it will dry pretty textured, so you will still want a top coat to finish this off. I do recommend a thicker glitter eating top coat. So here's our third coat, and that does cover completely in 3 coats. This one is also going to be pretty difficult to remove because of all the glitter that's in here. You will either want a peel off base coat for this one, or pure acetone, or those nail polish clips to get everything off cleanly. So there is 3 coats. Up next we have Fudge Me, and this is a like beige leaning cream. Here's our first coat of Fudge Me. So this one goes on pretty opaque here on this first coat considering how light and neutral of a color it is, but it's still patchy, so I am going to go in for a second coat. Formula is smooth, it's not too thick or too thin. It's comparable to OPI creams is what I think of when I think of Iscream Nails, where they're a little bit on the thinner side in general, but they're not too thin to make it difficult to work with. So here's our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats. This is going to dry glossy all on its own. You will want a top coat for longevity purposes if you so choose, but nothing is going to dry textured, and nothing in this is going to be difficult to remove. I also didn't have any kind of staining with this one. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have the Scoop, and this is a delicate kind of purpley pink neutral. Here's our first coat of the Scoop. So this one is pretty sheer here on this first coat. It's opaque for what it is, but it is still sheer in general. Formula is again good, smooth, easy to apply, not too thick or too thin, no running or pulling or staining. You do have to work in thinner coats to avoid the buildup along your sidewall. So here's our second coat, and that's building up in 2 coats. If you're not super picky and you work a little bit thicker, you could probably get this opaque in 2 coats. I am going to go in for a third coat because I did have some patchy spots. This one, just like the rest of the creams, will dry glossy on its own. I would still recommend a top coat to protect your manicure. So here's our third coat, and that does cover completely in 3 coats for me. Again, this one was pretty close on 2 coats, but that third coat is just going to secure that there are no patchy spots. So nothing in this is going to dry textured or be difficult to remove either. So there is 3 coats. Up next we have Lotta Lemon, and this is a soft pastel yellow cream. Here's our first coat of Lotta Lemon. So for yellow, this one covers really well here on this first coat. Pretty patchy, so I am going to go in for a second coat, but the formula is the same as the rest of the creams have been: smooth, not too thick, not too thin. If you work a little bit thicker, again, you will have some running down the side of your nails and potentially balding at the top. So here's our second coat, and again, that's building up well in 2 coats, where if you're not super picky, you could probably get away with 2 coats, but I am again going to go in for a third coat today, just because I had a couple patchy spots. Just like the rest of the creams, this one is going to dry nice and glossy on its own. You will want to finish off with top coat just for protection for your manicure. So here's our third coat, and that does cover completely in 3 coats for me, but it was very close in 2. Nothing in this polish is going to dry textured or be difficult to remove, and since we're talking yellow here, I also experienced no staining with this polish. So there is 3 coats. Up next we have Melon Moment, and this is a brighter green, it's like a neon pastel green cream. Here is our first coat of Melon Moment. So this one covers really well here on this first coat, a little bit patchy. I wouldn't expect much else from a pastel neon. Formula is very good, not too thick or too thin. This one's a little bit thicker than the creams that we've worked with before, so it does kind of stay right where you put it. I didn't have any kind of running down the side of my nails. So here is our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats. Unlike the rest of the creams, this one is going to dry to a satiny finish. If you don't like that, you will want a top coat, but I do think that this one would also look really beautiful matte if you aren't super picky about wearing top coats. Nothing in this polish is going to dry textured, and nothing in this is going to be difficult to remove, and I had no staining. So there's 2 coats. Up next we have Whipped, and this is a pastel sky blue cream. Here is our first coat of Whipped. Now this one covers really well here in this first coat, potentially a 1 coater after a couple uses. I did have obviously a couple darker spots, so I am going to go in for a second coat. Formula is much like Melon Moment, where it's a little bit thicker than the first few creams that we looked at, so the formula is very smooth and easy to work with. I do like my creams a little bit on the thicker side, where I don't have to worry about them running if my coats are inconsistent. So this is completely opaque in 2 coats for me. This one is going to dry glossy on its own. Again, that top coat will help just protect your manicure if you do so choose to wear one, but nothing is going to dry textured, be difficult to remove, or stain. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Sherbet Blast, and this is a light pastel pink cream. Here's our first coat of Sherbet Blast. So this one covers pretty well here on this first coat. It does go back to the thinner cream formulas of the bunch, where if you do too thick of a coat, it can run down the sides of your nails and create balding at the top and pulling at the sides, so just bear that in mind. Here is our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats for me. Depending on your application though, I could see you needing to go in for a third coat of this one. This is going to dry glossy on its own. Again, that top coat will help protect your manicure if you choose to wear one, but nothing in here is going to dry textured, be difficult to remove, or stain. So there is 2 coats. And lastly for today we have Sundae Funday, and this is a clear base glitter, and it's full of matte rainbow glitters. I'm going to be showing it to you today as a topper over the previous polish. And here's 1 coat of Sundae Funday over Sherbet Blast, and you get a good amount of glitter. You don't get a ton, and it does take some manipulation to get them to go where you want them to go. For my swatch photos, I decided to apply one coat so I could get the itty bitty micro glitter that are in here, and then I did placement with the larger glitter. You will want a top coat to smooth everything out, as this one does dry texture with glitter, but nothing is going to be super difficult to remove because most of these are on the larger side, so there's one coat. So first we have Hot and Spicy, and this is a neon leaning red cream. Here's our first coat of Hot and Spicy. This one does cover really well here on this first coat. I can still make up my nail line, so I am going to go in for a second coat, but it's almost guaranteed that if I'm going to flood my sidewall, it's going to be with red polish. Formula is very good, smooth, not too thick, not too thin. It's a little bit thinner than like Melon Moment was, but it wasn't as thin as the first few creams that we've looked at today. So here's our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats for me. This one is going to dry glossy all on its own. That top coat is just going to protect your manicure again if you choose to wear one. This is going to dry down darker than it applies, so bear that in mind. It's not going to be as bright as it is in the bottle. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Tangerine Pop, and this is an orange shimmer, but it also flashes obviously this gold. I'm going to show you what this looks like today over Hot and Spicy. Here is 1 coat of Tangerine Pop over Hot and Spicy. Iscream Nails shows this one to be built up to opacity on its own. I could not achieve that, but I do love the glow that this gives over Hot and Spicy. Good, easy to work with formula, a little bit on the thinner side, but it does spread out over other polishes nicely. Won't be difficult to remove or dry textured. So there is 1 coat. Up next we have Sublime Lime, and this is a neon chartreuse color. Here is our first coat of Sublime Lime. So this one covers nice and evenly for the most part on this first coat. Very sheer, not super sheer, but pretty sheer. You're going to have to build this one up. Formula is good, not too thick, not too thin, smooth, easy to work with, no running or pulling on this one. I did have some staining on my nails, or on my skin when I was removing this one, but it did not stain my nails. So this is building up well in 2 coats. Again, if you're not super picky, you could probably get away with 2 coats on this one. I am going to go in for a 3rd coat today just because I am feeling a little bit picky. So here is our 3rd coat, and that does cover completely in 3 coats for me. This one's not going to dry super glossy. I would still recommend a top coat, but either way you are going to want a top coat for this one because it's going to dry to like a demi-matte finish, but nothing is going to dry textured or be difficult to remove in this one. So there is 3 coats. Up next we have Sodalicious, and this is a like baby, it's like a soft sky blue but dusty, and it's cream. Here's our first coat of Sodalicious. So this one is more of a crelly polish. It's less cream and leaning towards the side of a jelly. Formula is good, it's just a little bit on the sheer side. It is going to look nice and squishy and kind of 3-dimensional when it's built up on the nail. So here is our 2nd coat, and that's building up well in 2 coats, but the nature of acrylic says to do 3, so I am going to go in for a 3rd coat. This one is going to dry to a decently glossy finish. Again, it's not going to be super glossy as though you had a top coat on, so I would still go ahead and recommend that top coat. So here's our 3rd coat, and that does cover completely in 3 coats for me. Nothing in this polish stained me, nothing is going to dry textured, nothing is going to be difficult to remove. There's no added elements to this polish, I'm just simply running out of things to say. So there's 3 coats. Up next we have Head Rush, and this is a primary blue cream. Here's our first coat of Head Rush. So this one is pretty opaque here on this first coat. I can still make out my nail line, but it does cover nice and evenly. The formula on this one is smooth. Again, not too thick or too thin, no running or pulling with this one. A little bit on the thicker side, but it is that thickness where it makes it nice and easy to manage. So here's our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats. This one's going to dry glossy on its own. You will want a top coat just to finish this off and protect your manicure. Nothing's going to dry textured or be difficult to remove. I would still recommend using a base coat for this one to prevent staining, though I didn't experience any staining myself. So there is 2 coats. Up next we have Shake It, and this is a super light, almost white, but it does have hints of a pink as well as a peach. Here's our first coat of Shake It. So this one is pretty sheer here on this first coat. Formula's a little bit on the thinner side. You can get some running and pulling if you try to go in too thick of a coat. Working in nice thin coats is recommended for this one. That way it builds up to opacity without any unevenness. So here's our second coat, and that's building up well in 2 coats. I am still going to go in for a third coat. I do have some patchy spots still hanging around on my nails. This one is going to dry decently glossy on its own. If you don't have time for a top coat, you can skip it, though I would recommend it just to protect your manicure. So here's our third coat, and that builds up to about 99% opacity on 3 coats for me. I do think it's probably best to go in for a thicker third coat just to cover up any patchy spots that might still be hanging around after. Nothing in this is going to dry textured or be difficult to remove either. So there is 3 coats. Up next we have Candy Heart, and this is a dusty rose pink cream. Here's our first coat of Candy Heart. This one covers really well here on this first coat. I do have a couple of darker spots. I am going to go in for a second coat, but if you're super careful and not super picky, you could probably get this one opaque in 1 coat. Formula is good, a little bit on the thicker side, but again, it's that easy to manage thickness where you don't have any running or pulling and it self-levels really well. So here's our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats. This one dries decently glossy on its own. You will want a top coat to just kind of give it that completed finish look. This one is also going to dry down a little bit darker than it applies, so bear that in mind. It's not going to look like it does in the bottle. So there is 2 coats. And lastly for today we have Cookie Crumble, and this is a peachy nude cream. And here's our first coat of Cookie Crumble. So this one also covers really well here on this first coat. I am working in thin coats, so I do have some patchy spots. If you work a little bit thicker, and again, you're a little bit more careful and less picky, you could probably get this one opaque in just 1 coat. Smooth, easy to work with formula, a little on the thinner side compared to the previous one we looked at, but not too thin where it does any kind of running down the side of your nails. So here's our second coat, and that does cover completely in 2 coats for me. This one is going to dry decently glossy all on its own. You will want top coat to protect your manicure and to give it that kind of finished look. Nothing in this stained, nothing in this is difficult to remove, and nothing in this is going to dry textured. So there is 2 coats. So from the actual ice cream collection, Sundae Funday is my favorite. I don't have anything like this, surprisingly. It's just a rainbow of matte glitters and a clear base, but it is so cute over literally anything you put it over. It does take a little bit of manipulation, and it's not one that I could personally build up to opacity. You could if you wanted to sponge it on. I personally hate sponging on glitter like this because it just makes an absolute mess that I don't want to clean up. So I love this as a topper though, a little bit of glitter placement, and it is such a fun birthday manicure. And then from the remainder of the polishes, Candy Heart is my favorite. This is a really fall pink to me, and pink is a color that I tend to wear all the time. So it's like my go-to kind of, I don't want to make a statement with my nails, but I want to put some nail polish on color. So this one is a very good one, especially for the fall time. So these two are the standouts from today's video for me. And guys, that is it. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of these polishes. Let me know if you plan on picking any of them up or if you already have. Let me know what your favorite was. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you'd like to see more from me, and I will talk to you again next time.